today's broadcast because we're going to cover stuff that nobody else is covering. We're going to cover the vulnerabilities that we found in the KGB and what their spy network wasn't able to produce on Hunter Biden. And we're going to be talking to you about the dangerous new developments that are taking place as corporations and governments are coming together to isolate and punish nations. They did this. We did this to Russia with our corporations and put a whole nation and the innocent civilian population into bankruptcy. And Google, Facebook, and Apple look like they're pressuring Texas to drop legislation against child sex change procedures. What in the world are corporations getting into now? Activism you don't want. We're going to do a deep dive on all this, and you're going to love it. We got to cover this stuff. And while I'm at it, I want to say that this may sound a little strange, but I'm doing these late night. I'm going to start doing my late night Lance rants. I'm in the studio here, and some people say, I had a criticism yesterday. Someone said, Lance, you have a studio and a certain persona. And I did a broadcast from a car, and they said, don't do it from a car. It's bad for your image. Well, who cares about image? I'm actually going to be doing some evening broadcasts the way that I literally live. I'm an authentic, transparent individual. Every night I wrap myself up in my Mike Lindell large bathrobe, and I have them in 2 different colors, by the way. And I slip my feet into my Mike Lindell slippers. And I tell you, I do this at the end of every day. But then I take off the bathrobe to do my little broadcasts at home, my Lance rants. But I'm going to stop doing that because I'm telling you something. There's nothing for me that is psychologically and physically more comforting and consoling than to be putting my feet into those comfy slippers, wrapping myself up in that bathrobe, and knowing that my partnership with Mike Lindell is helping a courageous and great Christian entrepreneur whose own bank canceled him, just like these corporations cancel their enemies. I'm investing even more in my commitment to Mike Lindell. And unlike some organizations where you give them money out of philanthropy, I get something from it. I get the enjoyment of being able to wrap myself up in the Mike Lindell product. Go to Lance, actually just go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Lance. You can get up to 40% or more off of every purchase. Join me in this. Tell me what you think of those slippers and bathrobes. Wow. We're right back now at the Lance Wallnau Show. And this is going to be a very important segment because I don't think people know what's happening in the world right now. And I mean this very sincerely. And in a strange way, even the good Commander Steve Bannon cannot actually speak to this issue because he is a student of the fourth turning, but not great awakenings. I, on the other hand, and your husband, Larry, are actually degreed and credentialed historians in the area of revival and awakening and how the spiritual activity of God connects to the convulsions of history. And so I would like to share with you a different perspective that you don't normally get to hear. And that is the fact that you're dealing with world rulers of this present darkness. The cosmokroteros is the Greek word that the Apostle Paul used in the book of Ephesians. Not trying to nerd out on you guys that aren't religious, but the Bible is already describing the days that we're in right now as a reshuffling of the tectonic plates of spiritual powers in the world. And you're watching the descent of the United States, sadly, as it's receding. And as it recedes, you see the restraining force that was the United States not holding back the lawlessness and the appetite of these other forces that are behind the government of the Communist Party of China, the lusting dictatorships of the earth, such as we have in Iran, in North Korea, and in Russia. And so you can expect a resurgence of these criminal powers that were put in check by the United States. As we had Trump in office, we could see there were no wars. Isn't it amazing how they all said Trump was going to start wars. Who's supervising Trump? Who's watching Trump? He's out of control. And they're all worried about what Trump would do. And the exact opposite happened. He knew exactly how to play the game. And he put the fear of him on world rulers. Do you know what he said to Putin? It's an interesting interview because this stuff just leaks out. He was being recorded doing just a casual conversation. And he said, he told Putin, he said, you know, if you move on Ukraine, I'm going to hit Moscow. And the guy goes, you told him that? He goes, yeah. He said, well, how much do you think he believed you? He said, 5% or 10%. He said, but that's the point.
Yeah.
You only need to put a 5 to 10% uncertainty into the brain of a guy like Putin, and he factors it in. He won't risk it if he thinks you might be crazy enough to do it.
Absolutely.
Oh, my God, how I wish Donald was back. All right, so God is having his way with history. Mario, you still here with us? Well, I'm glad you're still with us because I held you over after that last segment because people didn't get to meet your scintillating personality and engage your charm. And so thanks for staying over with us. Now, Mario and I met on the world stage. He had some extensive involvement during the Trump administration, particularly as it involved Israel and the embassy move and Middle East. But strangely enough, no, I should say strangely, but Central America, Latin America, South America, you had a lot of rapport with governments there, particularly as you were trying to promote the embassy move for Jerusalem. Could you give us as I'm talking about tectonic plates and world powers, I see the forces of communism with China very strongly appealing to the history of South America and Latin America, where we've had Marxists and Sandinista and Castro. And I'm concerned that there we don't have, and we have Putin influence in Venezuela, and we have Putin influences from these other countries. What's going on in the political and spiritual environment of South America?
Well, obviously, we had Castro, we had Cuba and Venezuela for the longest time trying to dominate Latin America. And they had the Forum of St. Paulo. They got together every year to see how they can take over other nations. And now the fact that where we're at in the United States has really fueled a lot of the movement of Marxism in Latin America. Peru, allegedly, a socialist president won with a fraudulent election, and our State Department and Biden affirmed that it was full and fair because that's they have their practice with that. And it looks like the Communist Party, it's their footprint out of Peru, adjacent to 5 different countries. Chile also, just a couple months ago, voted in a Marxist president. There's great concern. We just had that segment with the Jews. There's a large population of Jews in Chile, and the president is absolutely anti-Semitic, and they're talking about their concern and their safety under that presidency in Chile. We lost, obviously, Bolivia. That was an amazing move. We were there in Bolivia. And we're concerned that we're going to lose also Brazil. You and I were there recently. El Salvador, we met with the president twice. He was a Trump type of president, a Cyrus, very close to the United States. But with the pressures they received from the United States now, because apparently the U.S. is pressuring and trying to promote our agenda in Latin America, it pushed Bukele to the Chinese government. They're now aligning with the Chinese government. Recently, Bolsonaro was forced, I believe, and met with Russia. The fear of not having alliances like we used to for democratic leadership in Latin America, it's pushing them to Russia and it's pushing them to China as the key player in the world.
Wow, wow, wow. And this is news we do not hear. I haven't been hearing about this, but because we have friends and we did meet with Bolsonaro in Brazil, and we meet with these rulers and leaders of Congress and such in these countries. What nations are looking like they're healthy, that they have? Now, I want to talk about this sheep and goat nations thing, because what's happening now is prophetic. What's happening now is what Jesus said when he returns, the second coming in Christian theology, There's the belief that since they could never find the body of Jesus, there's always been the conviction that that the resurrection and the return of Jesus is what the Bible says, and it's just what Christians believe. He's coming back, and in the second coming, it's the end of history in this era, and a beginning of a new one. And Jesus gathers together in Matthew 25 all the nations, sheep nations and goat nations. I'm hearing some of these nations emerging. If they're anti-Semitic and anti-Christian, it's guaranteed they're a goat nation, because the goats are on the bad side of Jesus. The sheep are on the good. Any sheep potential down there, Mario?
Well, we do have Guatemala. Obviously, we've been there several times. They're standing strong in pro-life, notwithstanding pressure from the State Department. They're standing strong in family values, as well as very strong on pro-Israel. Another nation we just recently lost was Honduras. That moved its embassy to Jerusalem, was aligned with the United States. And there, the Socialist Party won the presidency and illegally took over the Congress. They didn't have a majority of the Congress. It was like here, 50-50. So we lost Honduras. We do have Guatemala, and El Salvador is wanting to do the right thing. Bukele came out like a Cyrus, and yet was forced. And it's interesting. It's the same thing that's happening in Saudi Arabia. We had a very good relationship with Saudi Arabia. Now they're being forced to speak to China and undo the petrodollar, et cetera, et cetera. The weakness of the United States and the positioning of the United States is forcing a lot of these nations for their own protection. Because a lot of these Latin American nations can't stand against the United States or State Department.
Yeah, so let's just paint this picture a little bit. Brazil, Bolsonaro, strong believer, Christian. Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, as part of the royal house, is trying to bring reform to the nation and eradicate the radical Muslims. But what they see, along with what we're seeing with El Salvador's president, what we see is these are conservative oriented. And what's weird is they're more attracted to the conservative policies of the Russian Orthodox influenced Putin than the radical, progressive, woke America version, which they find repugnant. They don't like the Biden-Harris ticket. They don't like the garbage that goes with it. They don't like the cultural export that goes with it. And they're trying to fight it in their country. And so, in a sense, it was Trump's diplomacy and values that engaged Brazil and El Salvador and Saudi Arabia on our side. And it's Biden, his incompetence, America's weakness, and the woke agenda of the left that these other leaders don't want in their countries. So they're willing to ditch us in a New York second if there could be a strong economic alternative for their country to prosper. And this is the great danger, that America is setting itself up for a judgment economically, the loss of the petrodollar. So, Mario, what's happening is Saudi Arabia is saying to China, hey, we'll do business with you. We'll use the yuan as a fiat currency. We'll just use your money instead of dollars, which kills the petrodollar in the United States. But Israel's at the center of all this. God is at the center of all this. And somehow it all goes back to Israel in the last days. We believe that Russia might even be at some point making a move against Israel, according to Ezekiel's prophecy. We got 53 seconds, not a lot of time. Mario, can you once again give us the address for where people can take action to help the Jews escape from Ukraine and find a home in Israel?
lci.global/Ukraine.
lci.global/Ukraine. Go there, support this move, and know that when you're standing with the Jews, you're standing with Israel, you're actually standing with what the Lord is doing in the earth. And I believe, Mario, we got to have you back again, and we'll do a little segment on the sheep and goat nation thing, because all the nations are aligning as sheep or goats. And when we come back in a second, we're going to be delivering something you haven't heard yet, you don't want to miss. Imagine what it would be like if you and I got together for an intensive weekend And I focused on you fulfilling the specific call and assignment God has on your life. We call that Level 10 Living. And we actually have a level10living.com site set up right now, specially for you. And what we've done is we've taken this weekend experience where people paid thousands of dollars for that immersion, and we reproduced it so that you could be just like you're at the event with all the material, all the exercises, all the training. And we've actually discounted it from $500 for a special $297 offer. Just go to level10living.com and get the most powerful transformational training that you'll experience in your life. Okay, now, whoa, you don't want to go anywhere. You want to catch this segment. This will be the most incendiary, powerful, and important segment we've got today. I'm going to tell you why. Because we go where other people don't go. We go into areas that I think need to be covered but frequently are missed. And we're going to be talking about how corporations have stepped over into a dangerous new territory where, along with media, they are becoming the arm of execution for the agenda of totalitarian and authoritarian elites, such as Apple, Google, and Facebook, now interfering with parents' ability to protect their children from being evangelized by LGBTQ activists in the school system to cause them to question their gender identity and to convert them and evangelize them into chemical castration and to change their gender at a young age, dividing child from parent. This is so infuriating. Google, Apple, Facebook, call on Texas to drop legislation. And what is the legislation? The legislation, this part of what that developed this was a father whose wife was a woke, nutty, activist who raised their son from the moment he was born to believe that he should have been a girl. And the father was saying, stop it, leave him alone. He's a normal boy, he's a normal kid. And she was convinced that in his gender fluidity, he was actually a female. The boy started wondering about think how tragic this is. The boy starts wondering what his identity is. And the father is so infuriated with the wife screwing up their son and her mental woke condition that they end up getting divorced. She wants custody of the child to help him get a surgery done to complete the transition at as early an age as possible. The father says, I want custody of the son to get him away. You see how this came up as a political issue in Texas, all the way up to Governor Abbott's desk. Parents justifiably say, my gosh, we got to protect our kids from these people. So the governor approves this legislation that says he doesn't want sex reassignment surgery done on children. He said it's a form of child abuse. The children don't know these issues. Don't prey upon them when they're vulnerable at that age. However, these corporations, you see what they did with GoFundMe, shut down the funds for the brave truckers up there in Canada who were peacefully trying to make a statement about getting back to normal. And then they shut down Give, Send, Go's funds. They're taking people off of platforms. They'll freeze your bank account if we ever have a digital currency and go over to the government controlling the money. They'll shut you down like in a China moment. Here's the deal. These corporations that are now sanctioning Russia, not just Putin, not just his government, but all the people of Russia are now experiencing bankruptcy, and they're being deplatformed and blocked from access to serve. This is not the way you want business operating. Business should get the heck out of politics and religious wars. This ideological gender issue is a religious belief. It is actually woke activists, and there's going to be cases coming to the Supreme Court saying that you guys are you got your own version of blasphemy laws. You can't use certain pronouns and adjectives. You're controlling speech. You're like a Muslim where somebody can't preach the gospel. You're shutting down Christians because they don't agree with you. You're deplatforming them and putting them out of business. This is going to stop, I promise you. It's almost as though we're reaching the boiling point, and the passive Christians are going to have to get off their butts and recognize that this is for you, like the Feast of Purim, which is literally happening in Israel right now. Historically, you've got a Haman spirit rising up in government that wants to take you out. You are the modern day equivalent of a Jew in Persia in those days, and you're going to have to rise up and push back. And in November, if you don't rise up and push back, 20% of evangelicals vote woke.
Wow.
What nut jobs? All right, so what I'm saying is Google, Apple, Facebook, calling on Texas, interfering with a state's own sovereignty. What are they going to do now? Shut off all Google, Apple, Facebook access for people that don't vote the way they want them to vote? Mm-hmm. This is going to stop. But, Disney is its own version of nut job.
Yeah. Well,
what are they up to?
Well, can I say something in terms of what you're talking about?
I'm coming back to you right now.
Okay, cool. So, as you're talking, there's that, we have the separation of church and state. I really think we need the separation of corporate and state, because I didn't vote for these corporations as they're all en masse pulling out of Russia, which have consequences for American citizens. It's very concerning. And then to your point, what are they going to do in Texas? You don't agree with something? I mean, don't you remember when Georgia was passing like election reform bills and all the Hollywood elite were threatening to pull out all of their movie studios and things like that? I mean, we got to come up with a name for this, because it goes beyond economic warfare. It's something different entirely that bears consequences for your average everyday citizens. And to your point, it's strong arming, it's weaponizing of something that should just be focused primarily on, are we making a profit and delivering to our shareholders? Instead, it's corporate wokeism. I can't. It's a different term, and I'm waiting for you to come out with something.
I will.
I'm just
realizing right now. I'm just realizing right now. The LGBTQIA. We're adding the IA. I'll have to find out what the heck that is. Disney employees, including those who are LGBTQIA plus, are planning a massive walkout for March 22nd to protest the entertainment giant's response to Florida's education bill that prohibits teaching of sexuality and transgender. You see this, folks? This disease of woke ideology pushing the transgender agenda is now working and worming its way through Europe. They're shutting off funds for Hungary and Poland, the EU, because they won't educate the children on homosexuality and transgender ideology. It's a religious belief.
But let's be really clear. When we say children, the bill applies to kids from kindergarten to third grade. If you are needing to explain to a third grader your sexual preferences, because that's what we're talking about when we say LGBTQIA. We're not talking about, anything other than who you would prefer to have sex with. And so it's very strange to me, or I guess in how you identify yourself, right? Like if you're a man, a trans type of a thing like that. But we have to talk to kindergartners and third graders about that. Can't we wait till third grade is essentially 8 years old. Kindergarten is anywhere between 5 and 6. And so we're talking about that at that age. And they try, and I like the way that Breitbart titled this. It's, the Don't Groom Kids bill, but the way the media was trying to push it. And I wish we had that clip of DeSantis, but they're calling it, the media's calling it the Don't Say Gay Act bill. And DeSantis called him out for it the other day. He really went after a reporter who talked about that. He said, no, we're talking about kindergarten to third grade. We need to be talking about that right now.
This is where you could push back and say these are the must-be gay activists.
Yeah.
You must convert. You must be gay. Yeah. You must accept it. You must embrace it. You must affirm it. You're not allowed to reject it. If you do, you should be deplatformed and all your money should be taken from you. That's a religion, folks. Yeah. That's as bad as the Taliban.
Yeah.
You got the trans-Taliban.
It feels
the
that way.
The Trans-Taliban Railroad. It's Trans-Siberian. All right, so here's what I want you to catch right now. The Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott, catch the continuity. See the Rorschach test here. These are the sheep states. What we're seeing is territorial alignments in a great global moment of realignment. And in the global moment of realignment, Hungary and Poland, I'm bringing them up to you because I've been watching them for 3 years. And I'm saying, my gosh, those are sheep nations. You know why? They are family friendly. They protect the family. And this infuriates the American woke left. That's why Viktor Orban is hated. Tell you what, Florida and Texas, sheep states. We got some other ones out there, but nobody's taking the lead. And notice the warfare that's coming is over the front lines of the transgender LGBTQ, going after children, kindergarten to 3. Yeah. And this is where we're suddenly, DeSantis, I love him. He gets up and says, what's up with Disney? It used to be a family-oriented business. I'll tell you what, you know what they ought to do there? They don't have the kahunas to do it. They should say, everyone that walks out, they did this with the union, Reagan did it with the air traffic control when he was president. You walk out and your job is going to be given to someone else who has Disney values and compatibility. Figure out a way. They have shareholder responsibility to their investors to preserve the Disney brand. And if you walk out because of this issue, then you're going to lose your job. Play it hard.
I was just saying Disney values have gone out the window 25, 30 years ago. But I wanted to say this. You had this great line yesterday in this article regarding, sheep states or sheep nations. But it was in a different context. But you called it islands of democracy in a sea of totalitarianism. And I just thought that was such a great line. Hopefully I quoted it correctly.
Islands of democracy in the great raging seas of totalitarians.
I thought that was good.
Well, we only have 1 minute and 15 seconds. Well, you haven't talked enough today, and I feel like I've been robbed of your effervescent insights.
It's fine. I'm going to tell you this insanity,
all right,
too.
take it.
I don't know if you know this, but as of January 1st of 2022, let's say on eBay, if you sell something over $600, like your iPhone, they're now required to issue a 1099 for that sale on eBay.
Why?
And because the IRS wants to get paid. They want money. Just imagine when we get to the digital dollar, because it's coming. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen, unfortunately. That's what it's all about. It's taxing every single dollar, knowing where every single one of your dollars is going. It's just fascinating to me. It's like a $600 iPhone sale.
And they're going to get away from paper currency.
You're getting a 1099.
They're going to get away from paper because they're going to say, yeah, but people could be doing business under the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating.
All right. Well, look, folks, the big thing I want you to know is Russia says they're so mad at America, they want Alaska back.
I got one other crazy thing.
I'm talking about Alaska with 15 seconds.
Okay, but Zelensky's...
All right, I'll talk about it tomorrow. What?
Zelensky's old show is now streaming on U.S. Netflix. I don't know if you knew that either.
All right, well, that's the point we'll make going out of the broadcast. We're going to be back again on the next broadcast. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this Lance Wallnau broadcast. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe and share the episode. See you tomorrow.